This is part 13 of the FZ600 set of tapes that we're working on for Mark Morgan. Last time we had a time to do a session, we got the backmasking done, the tape, but we didn't get the tin foil on. I want to get that ready in case we get one day this week that it's appropriate to do some painting. Now, last time we worked on this, it was quite an adventure getting all these blocks organized. I was real happy the way it came out. I wanted to show this one trick on backmasking before we go on to the next part. And this works pretty well. Anybody that's never seen this, you can use this to your advantage anytime. The cheapest tin foil possible, the thinner the better. Fresh masking tape. Now, whenever you're trying to mask off an intricate shape like this, well, we're going to try to leave the blue stripes showing, but we want to backmask the red. That's the objective here anyway, that we'll only leave the blue exposed. Now, if you look real close, what I'm going to do is push this down with my hand. And what that's going to do is leave an impression in the foil. Let me show that up close. It's not a great macro lens camera, but by pressing that down you can see it leaves a spot. Now I can run a razor right along that, and that will give me the exact shape that I need to mask off the ladders. And I always like to attribute or pay tribute to the late Walt Prey, who taught me this trick. He was a professional custom car painter out in California who shared a lot of the technology he had, the gold leaf. He taught me how to do gold leaf. Taught me some of the tricks of doing this painting, and yet, even up till today, some of the model airplanes he painted are among the best, I think. Anyway, we probably could use that for the other side. Not that tin foil's that expensive, though. But now you can see that leaves a pretty nice thing. It makes it relatively easy to do what normally would be relatively difficult. And again, a good trick from the late Walt Prey, who, again, lives on thanks to our sharing of the information. And got a little spot back here to tape off, but now, if it ever clears up, we're in a spot where every day it's either been too humid, too cloudy, looks like rain. I don't want to be doing any of this until we get a reasonable day for painting. But backmasking all of these things off and have it, here's the whole objective, is to have this all ready to go. So when we get some weather, we can just go right out there and paint. And what I'll try to do is backmask all of the parts of this job that I have blue to do, where there'll be blue, and I can have one session with the blue, hopefully get it all drying. So we've got one of the pieces ready. I'll do the other one off camera. And these two will be ready for, as soon as we get some painting weather, for some blue paint. And that blue that's part of this job is a beautiful color blue. Okay, with all that backmasking ready, I think the next part, and this will be a pretty simple job, I want to backmask. This is the pattern for the seat. I don't know if he's going to use this. We just want to put clear on it or what. But we have that part already in pearl white. And if you look at this, the way they did this at the factory, they used tape or stickers or whatever they did. Well, ours will be all paint, of course, and we'll do I hope, a little bit nicer job on that. But first thing will be exactly the same. I'll measure it and figure out where that stripe is and lay it off, so I can be doing this blue at the same time I'm doing this blue on these parts, all at the same time. Okay, and that part's ready now. Just waiting for the weather. Boy, if only we could control the weather. Oh, would that be nice. What I did, I snuck out there. It stopped raining for a few minutes. I wanted to get the blue striping on this. The reason is that can dry overnight before I can pull up the tape. So having that, I'm actually, this puts me one day ahead. And I need to get at least 2 and maybe 3 coats but I don't want to put it on all at once. I want light coats. So we use this little break in the weather to get some of this done anyway, but I don't dare take the camera out there, because on days like today, when you have paint and spray guns and cameras and all of a sudden it starts pouring, well, you in deep doo-doo and everything gets wet. And that's definitely going to need a third coat. The reason I'm looking at this is very dark. So what it means is that this is just, if you look at it real close, the seat is not exactly the color of that decal. That decal may be faded, or that graphic, but we want it all to match, and that's going to be a real nice combo when it's done. I think I'll just wait, give it about 10 minutes, have a cup of coffee, and of course get a third coat on there as soon as that dries. Now I opened up the box. I only had one part here, so what I'm going to have to do is, of course, interpolate it, flip it over backwards, and work off some of these areas that I know I guess the most prominent area is the stripe. So I'll make, again, just like I did on a previous video, I'll make a pattern, I'll make a stripe, I'll make all the parts, and then when I'm all done, I'll have to mirror image them. But also in the box, and of course what's good is we do have a nice, you know, color rendition picture, but there was also some more side covers in the box. I don't know what Mark wants to do with these. Some look brand new. Some of these still need repair. We still have a fender that, I know you don't see this, but it's going to need some body work on that. So what I'm trying to do is, because of the weather, just use this day efficiently. And these parts, see, I like to let anything that has a paint stripe on it dry overnight. A lot of people, 2 hours later, they pull the tape up and they start backmasking. I'm just more comfortable, old school way. Let it dry overnight, one color at a time. And again, we're not getting paid by the hour here, so it doesn't really matter. But this is going to be one of the things. I have to go out to the garage and get these two fairing parts that already have the clear on them. Maybe even today get that back mast and get the blue painted. Boy, that would be nice. Now again, it's a big advantage for us to already have clear over the pearl just to protect it while we're doing all this backmasking and taping. And as I'm out here looking at some of these that have the decals already on them, the fairing parts, and that blue is just a beautiful color. You have to see that in real life when the sun is hitting it. And there's another fairing in the back up there in a laundromat. We call it the laundromat because there's always fairings hanging in here. So I'll bring these downstairs. The weather is not promising. It's not raining right now, but you can see it has been raining. It's damp, it's clammy, and the wind is howling. It's not a good day to paint, but we'll try to get these little stripes painted if we can. So the first step on these parts, and I thought I'd go just replicate what I did on the side panels. Now I noticed Mark only has one of these, so we're going to have to be a little creative about putting these dimensions into the other side. Not that we're not creative or anything. We are. Okay, so this is the top. This gives me a reference line here. Blue, white, white. We're really only concerned with the white and blue. Pretty much exactly the same. We'll do the same thing on the back. Okay, so we have both of the sides done. Now what's going to be tricky here, and I'll do this with 1/8" tape, leave that white border so it looks just like this. But down in here I see when they put the sticker on at the factory, they missed by 1/4 inch. It's too low here. This doesn't even come close to lining up. So we're going to try to make it a little more accurate than the factory did. I'm not sure that well, who knows? But this is what's nice. If I look at this, it doesn't really look like this stripe really lines up with that one at all. So I don't know if ours is going to be any better, but we're going to give it our best shot, of course. But it's a lot of times when you're dealing with a factory thing. Now look, I'm looking at this, and they did this in 2 pieces. What they did, this is one piece of vinyl, then they added this piece in the front. So there's a joint here. You can see the joint. Boy, that's really... That, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, we're going to try to make it a little bit nicer. But notice this does not become a parallel line to the parting line. It gets a little bit bigger. It's about 1/8 of an inch back here. So the first thing we're going to want to remember is we're not going parallel to that line. And as I look at this, I can see, yes, on the real, the literature, yes, that's a bigger, you know, I'm just looking at this and I'm seeing something that I haven't seen before. This line doesn't match up with this line at all. They're not even close. I'm wondering if that's just something. Well, we're going to make it this way. But let me tell you, if this were my custom bike, if this was I was doing a custom bike, I would put the bodywork on and then lay this tape out. So if you laid a ruler on this, it would be perfect. That would be the right way to do it. But again, it's Mark's bike, and I know he wants it to look just like that. So here's something we have to improvise. If I take these dimensions off here, exactly, and I mean exactly, what's going to happen, I'm going to clip the part of this A. See, this is just going to come up. I'm hoping I can maybe I can nurse that up about 1/8 of an inch and just miss that A, because I don't think it's going to look right with that. Well, I think what happened when we put this decal on, Mark put it up a little bit too high, thinking he'd leave room for the Metzler decal, but without realizing that's going to walk right into the stripe. But if I have to, I'll make a little 1/8 inch box around it. But again, these are the little things you run into every time. Every time you do a job like this, there's always something you run into, and then there's always some spot that you have to touch up, or the paint peels up, or there's an edge that's crooked. And so we try to stack the deck by buying new tape, both of these rolls of tape. But eventually, there's always some spot where the paint doesn't stick to the older part, or something that you always have an issue. But then when you look at the factory job is no better. There's mistakes on it. Things don't line up the way they should. So I'm not sure my work is any worse. It probably is better. Here, the top of this stripe would catch the top of the scoop, but it's not even. It's thicker in the back than it is in the front. Again, I'm not sure, and I'm going to try to correct that a little bit, but I'm not sure because I've laid this out. I've laid it out with exactly the dimensions that are on this original bodywork. We don't have the other side, so doing the other side is going to be a lot of improvising. But again, in the real bike, they don't line up at all. And so this required a little bit of fudging to get that to miss the point of the A, and I don't think anybody will notice that. And we've got the blue stripe laid out exactly the way it is. Now I've got to cut this tape, and I've got to get in here and do a lot of messing around in here so I can get this back masked out. Cut these edges, and this top stripe does not follow exactly with this, but again, we're trying to, it's all this fudging and moving everything around that is going to make this, when it's done, it hopefully will be a good replication of the original bike. A lot of fudging going on here. Now, anytime you have to work around air intakes, air exhausts, outlets, covers, I need to replicate that thin stripe around there. I think I got all the dimensions right. I fudged this one so we don't see that A. I didn't want that A sticking up. And again, this part doesn't have that on it, so it makes it a little more difficult. Now, next thing is I'll get some office paper, make the 3 patterns, same as I did on the side cover, and lay out the 3 patterns. I want to have all the tape laid out, then back mask off everything except the blue, and maybe even get the blue painted today. Now, this is just reminding me when we did Luciano's yellow R6, the yellow one, not the blue one, and I painted the stripe. We did it at his house, and we lined up the tape with the seat and everything. Well, we spent a lot of time, but it really paid off. Well, this one, we got to make a pattern for everything. There's no fooling around. Everything's going to need a pattern. Now, in referencing all of these patterns, just takes time. And going back and forth and looking at, did we get the look? Do we have the point winds up right there? And luckily these are all a pretty standard shape, so I can just wrap that around. That, and I've added 1/8 of an inch there, which I had to do. And I know this piece, when I attach this one here, now does it have a point? Yes it does. Point right there, a point right there. And we've got the 3 patterns on. Once we take the patterns off, this should start to look pretty much like what we want. All right, I think we've got exactly what we need here. The only thing we need to do now, I'll lay out the other piece. I have to reverse everything. So I'll make a whole new piece of tape and then I'll just reverse it. And I'll try to get this back masked, and it looks like I might even get some of the blue. I want to do the blue because what I thought would be an advantage, and I can just back mask the blue, pull out the tape off the red, and do that on the next work session. Now with all the back masking done, what we're waiting for now is a gap in the rain. Maybe we'll get one, maybe we won't, but we're going to go have a coffee break now and hope that the weather clears up a little. We can get some blue paint on this today. Alright, we got the first coat of blue on. It looks like everything's pretty good there. Now unfortunately, as our side panels have dried up, you can see we have a compatibility issue. Remember, this is Sherwin-Williams paint, and we're going over 5-star clear, and there's never a time when everything is a guarantee. It looks like that's not happy being there. So what the repair on this is going to be, I'm going to have to let this dry overnight, sand this down, prime it to seal it. It's going to be a big job to take, and this would never happen if you're using all paint from one family. It's when you mix and match paint that you get to have a problem. And the Sherwin-Williams, apparently, it's happy in some spots. This piece came out fine. This piece, both of the stripes have given me a problem. I'm going to have to sand them down. And I'm going to have to reprime this. Luckily, it's all back masked already. But whenever you see this issue, you know you have something incompatible. Usually it's the thinner in the paint that's the problem. So, and again, this Sherwin-Williams paint is using a totally different thinner than we use with 4th Dimension. Could be the problem. I don't know. Whatever. This will be a repair for another day. There's not much you can do about it now. But if you try, what happens if you try to fix that the day it happens? You wind up having to repaint the whole part. This one came out perfect. So it just shows you the world of paint can make you crazy. This one looks okay. So it went over 3 of the parts without any issue at all. And the 4th part, a compatibility issue. So who knows? It's the magic world of paint. And it's why we make the videos. But we'll show to repair it at in the next day or so. Now, I had this part up by a heating vent, and the heat is on because it's really cold out there. So this is what I wanted to show. This is the compatibility issue that we are now having only on this part. And you could get into this with people that really do body work for a living, and people that have done this for many, many years all have their own horror stories about how this can happen. And you can see this happened randomly only on this part. It's the only part. Now there's something in that substrate that this doesn't like. So what I've done, I've used 1000 grit paper, sanded it. It's pretty dry now. It's been up there. I had 2.5 hours while I was doing other work. And what I'm going to do now is prime it and put it back up by the heating vent. But what has to happen, everything has to dry up now. But that part's sitting up by a heating vent, you don't know until that primer dries up. But anytime you have a compatibility issue, and it doesn't work every single time, but I'd say 90% of the time you can get away with by sanding it, put a coat or even 2 coats of primer in between. The primer acts as a sealer, so that the thinner in the paint that's causing a problem. And it is the thinner in the paint. Another thing you can do, and maybe I'll do this right now, is just make another batch of paint with, let's say, 40% thinner and 60% paint. So it's thicker, there's less thinner penetrating into the substrate. But everything else here looks, I guess, as good as we can have it look. Now, as I say that, I see that as time has gone by, we've got a compatibility issue with the Sherwin-Williams paint. I think it's the thinner in the Sherwin-Williams paint. So what I'm going to do is take and make another batch of Sherwin-Williams paint using my thinner, not the Sherwin-Williams thinner. And again, what I'll have to do once this dries, I'll put it up by the heating vent, sand it down, prime it, and repaint it. That's really the only way. And this is going to add a couple days to the job. And I'm sure Mark's, this is just one of the things. Disappointed, but when you start experimenting and mixing and matching paints, this is what happens, or it can happen. Anyway, we'll see if we can put any recovery we make on video so we could pass this information on. Anybody that's ever painted for any length of time knows every time you take, if we started with one brand of paint and then the thinner that belongs in that paint, then we add a different brand, and then we use something else on top of that, then something under that, and every time you mix and match these, this is the problem you tentatively can have. So what my goal here is to show what one of the ways of recovering from this is to get that sanded down, and don't put more paint on top, because the same thing will happen. Get at least 1 or 2 coats of primer in between. And then we'll see if that works. It's debatable even if that's going to work. But if not, getting it up by the heating vent, better than just sitting out in the garage right now. Now another trick, because it's winter, our heat is on, of course, and this is an old house, the heat is almost always on. But here's the other issue that's worth mentioning. If you're dealing with summer and it's 80 degrees outside, you don't want to put this in the sun. It'll dry it so fast you'll get a bubble in the paint. Or the paint will not stick well because it'll dry too fast. Paint has to dry over a certain time. It can't, if you take a heat gun and dry paint instantly, you get no chemical bond. So I found a good compromise to that is the heating vent right here, right above our work table. Seems to be a good balance between getting it dry, or in some cases the best thing is just leave it dry overnight if you don't have the heat on, but never put it out in the hot sun. That's not a good choice, especially if it's black. And because we're trying to pass on information, this is what I was trying to explain. Here is what tentatively could be a problem, even if it isn't the problem. This will make it better. Here we have this. This is the paint that we've mixed. We've mixed it with, as per the instructions, this Sherwin-Williams thinner. Well, this is, believe me, this is probably the culprit right here. So what I'm going to do, and I very wisely did not mix the whole amount, so I have about 1/3 of the amount here. I'm going to get a clean jar and mix this with this thinner, which is 4th dimension thinner, and see if that's any better. Now, what happens is it's the thinner that penetrates in and makes these alligator skins. So using less thinner is one choice, and using a thinner that dries quicker another choice. But you only have so many choices. You don't have all the choices. And here we just want to recover from this incompatibility issue. So as time has gone by, I always recommend, when you have these kind of issues, 1000 grit paper. Because the reason I don't want to put any deep scratches in it. I want to just get rid of as much of this alligator skinning as I can. And since we've turned this into an all-day work session, it started out not to be that way, but the way it's played out. But that's the thing with paint, that you never know. You never know when it's going to be your lucky day. And then you get these days where you have alligators visit you and monsters and who knows what else. Paint turns into chewing gum. But that is really a true thing. Now, when we were doing the development work for Brodak Dope, I can go back and remember, that was a lot of years ago, that all of the penetration issues that we had, the incompatibility issues on that product, every one was related to the thinner. People trying to skimp on thinner or use alternative thinner, and ran into all kinds of just what I'm doing right now, these kind of issues. But obviously it's important, if you're going to be a painter, to know how to recover from some of these problems. That now a body shop wouldn't have this problem, because they would already either have all Sherwin-Williams stuff or all of some other Fourth Dimension was my choice. But Mark, because of the way this worked out, Mark sent us a time bomb. So I'm just going to have to reflect it in the bill. And Mark, if I was you, I'd be starting to put some extra 20s in that piggy bank. That big bank that says Wendy's Paint Jobs. Anyway, to get this sanded smooth, it looks ugly as sin, but the primer usually will cover it up. And then you've got, and then as ugly as it looks, in the end it'll be fine. So once that alligator skin is all sanded down with 1000 grit, I've got a coat of primer on, and I think if the new blue with the low penetrating thinner, actually fast thinner is what you want, what I want for these shop conditions, if that is compatible, more compatible with this, then what I'll do is, before I do the red, I'll mix a new batch of red using the thinner, not the Sherwin-Williams thinner, the stuff that the 733. Now this is the part we sanded and repaired. I'm not sure it's going to be any better, because you won't see that come through until it's dry. In fact, I see it's starting to come through already, so we may have a major compatibility issue here that I have to resolve one way or the other. So after 5 minutes by the heating vent, didn't get any better at all. So I think we're going to be in, now we're in the area where this can really get to be a pain in the ass. This is going to have to be sanded off, and it's going to be a major thing to get this straightened out. So, as can happen. Now here you have the same paint, the same parts, the same everything. This one is absolutely perfect. This one, no matter what I do, I've got compatibility issues with that. And I haven't even looked at the seat yet. Well, we haven't even put the blue on it yet. It's still up by the heating vent. So, I'm not sure this day is going to end on a positive note. That's for sure. You know, when it rains, it pours, and I can see we've got an issue with this fairing, which this one isn't even dry yet. Of course, everything is fine everywhere else, but there's a spot here that's absolutely a mess. And I'm not sure how we're even going to solve that right now. But I know the one thing that'll always pay, when you have this kind of thing, I see this one is getting worse by the minute. And when I've had this in the past, I know one thing. It's probably going to have to get sanded right back down. And that is going to be a job for another day. So this day, even though it started out good, it doesn't look like it was our lucky day. But I can share the information with you. When you mix and match paint, good luck. Now, as a final last resort tonight, what I thought I'd do is I took a sanding block, some 400 paper, and I went right back down to fiberglass to see where we're having a problem here. And hopefully before the day's over, we'll figure this out. But there's going to be so much repair on this now, and I don't know any really cheesy way out of it. This is the only way I know that we're going to try. I'll try priming this, waiting a little while, putting some paint on it, and see if that's still contaminated. Then I'm really at a loss. I have to come up with something different. So the last of my things to try, I tried, and it didn't work at all. I tried to, well, basically use a different kind of primer, a low penetrating, high fill primer. Didn't work at all. It's just not happy with the paint underneath it. And to be honest, I don't know if it's the white pearl or the white or what's giving me the problem, but there's something in here that this paint, there is some compatibility issue, and we may have to resort to stripping these parts back down to, and I don't even know if that's going to work. That's the problem. And to make it even worse, the seat came right back, even with the other thinner. It was no different. Seat was not happy at all. I think we can just pretty much figure out that we've stumbled upon something, and I don't know what it is. Not right now, anyway. And I don't want to make myself crazy about it, but it's come back on the side pieces. And again, one piece, perfect, one piece here. Now I need to know what Mark wants to do at this point in time if we're going to go forward. I don't see there's any point in even going forward, because right now there's, and I think the problem that we've had, just my gut feeling, is we have mixed and matched. That there's something in that Sherwin-Williams paint that doesn't like, because I haven't had a problem until I started using this Sherwin-Williams paint, this blue, that it does not like what's underneath it. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about this overnight. I'll call Mark, see what he wants to do, and it's just a shame, but even the part that we've gone right down to pretty much the fiberglass, it's not happy at all. And usually what that's telling me is this whole part is going to have to get dunked in paint remover or something. Anyway, I try to share the information as I learn it. Today was a complete meltdown, and even that is worth sharing. Anyway, we'll see what Mark comes up with, and we'll get back to this in a day or so. And thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something, because I hope in the next couple of days I learned something too. Thanks for watching. I'll tell you, after all the meltdown that we had, and we really had a mess, this was really a mess, the only solution that got me through this, it's not a real good solution either. I see we're not getting the alligator skinning now. What I did, I took Zap-A-Gap CA, this is medium, but thick would have been just as good. I painted the part with CA, so what happened, this became a barrier to keep the paint from melting. And it was, boy, that was a last resort, if there ever was a last resort. Now, up on this part, it worked, and I didn't go to sleep tonight. I can't sleep when this kind of stuff happens. I really had to fight this to get that. And the only solution, and this is the worst one right here, this part here, looks like we got it solved. But there's a couple of things, and I thought I'd share this before I end this video, because I didn't want to just end the video on, you know, something terrible like today. But another thing is I took the paint and just put the slightest amount of thinner so it would spray. You see it sprayed kind of orange peely. Well, what that does, the thinner doesn't go down in and melt everything. So it's a crude solution to a problem. Not sure it's the real solution, but we're going to find out when we put the red on, because the red is fourth dimension paint, and I'm going to make sure I put it on. I may even airbrush it on. I was just thinking of another way, or with some other way of using less thinner, but this looks like we do finally have it solved. So now I finally can end the video. And well, I'm a persistent old man, that's for sure, but this really made me crazy today. But you know what? That's the beauty of the video, is I love to share the things I learn, and I have learned this the hard way. This whole thing of mixing and matching paint, this is the last job. I will never do this again. I swore a couple of times ago I'd never do it again, but Mark had already bought this paint, and it's the Sherwin-Williams paint that's the deal breaker here. And if we didn't have that, this job probably would already be done and I'd be moving on to the next project. But we did learn something. We still have another fairing to do tomorrow, and we know now that the stripes don't really line up exactly the way we're trying to make it better, and we still have to do a gas tank. Now here's the problem. When we do the gas tank, it would be horrible to have to repaint the whole gas tank. So I want to make sure that gas tank is down to where we don't have any of this mystery meat underneath. Anyway, again, I've said it earlier in the night. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've enjoyed watching me suffer here anyway. And thanks again for watching. And tomorrow will be a brighter day for both Mark and for me.